What's going on here is much more complex than that.
Can we skip this? Like, hit the skip button or something?
Oh, you don't want to skip this.
Yes, we do.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my South Park Stick of Truth hardcore difficulty walkthrough. This is the Detention sentence quest, and we're talking to Scott Malkinson, I think his name is. I have diabetes. Oh god, I'm Scott Malkinson, I have diabetes. So if anybody thinks that that particular joke is an insensitive one, like why are they picking on someone for having diabetes, that is literally the only reason this character exists in the show. He's there to be mocked because he's got diabetes. And I know it's a real thing and it's not nice, but it's still fucking hilarious in the context of the show and the way that they do it, because it's endless. He's always mocked for it and nothing else. And even his character's got like insulin and needles on his like cape thing. God, it's so silly. But I'm just looking at what he's got here. You'll notice there's a ton of stuff. I don't really bother too much with the flare. You'll notice I've kept the gas mask on for no real reason. Oh, I'm going to sell the junk. So the junk is glorious, and there's an achievement for not selling any of it in an entire playthrough, and I did that in my first one. Scott Malkinson, I have diabetes. And on this one I decided to sell it because it's great for getting money. But some of the stuff, if you're a big South Park guy, you will spot so much reference in it because there is so much there. Like literally ridiculous metric tons worth of references. And not just the obvious ones, like the Okama game sphere, and there's everything ranging from season 1 all the way up to the most recent stuff. Like just the stuff you pick up. In Mr. Mackey's office, there was the handbook for that like PR system he gets for the school, and I forgot the name of it now. But it's essentially that instead of seeing the principal, they have to make digital appointments on this machine, and every time he messes with it, it keeps playing like 80s music and turning on the sprinklers. God, it's so good. And they've even got like a joke reference in that. It's so well put together with its fiction and its canon. And like a lot of the stuff that the characters say, if you've watched a lot of South Park, you'll notice that there is quite a lot of reused gags from the show, but there's also a hell of a lot of just original stuff. But we're now moving towards the school, picking up a couple of stuff, talking to people, and here it is. One of my favourite things about the game is when you reload, it plays the signature guitar that it does after it comes off after a break on the show. So after the midway through the episode, it shows the South Park sign and it does the guitar riff. It plays that, and it's just one of those riffs. And the music in this game is stellar. There is literally only one thing that confuses me. There's no battle music, and for an RPG to not have battle music, it seems kind of strange. And every so often there is. For instance, when you fight the Sparrow King, it plays the "A great adventure is waiting for you ahead," that awesome Anus song. And then when you fight a certain somebody, it plays one of the Japanese mock songs, which is another good one. But traditionally there's no music when you fight, and I think it's because they want you to be able to hear the characters. And the characters say a lot of stuff, so it's never boring, but at the same time it would have been really nice to have a catchy theme. And Trey Parker and Matt Stone are such musical guys that it's surprising that they didn't put something there. Oh, you might be wondering what I did then as well. If you fart on somebody you've just beaten up 10 times, you get an achievement. There's also an achievement for farting on 3 people at the same time out of combat. 3 enemies, which I fart on like 5 enemies in this guide and it doesn't give it me, and it was really annoying. But that there is the first instance of using the fart that Cartman learnt us, the dragon fart. If you ever see an open flame, or if you ever see something glinting, it means you can interact with it. You can either throw stuff at it with your thrown weapon, or you can fart. So test everything. Like, there's a light above this ginger kid. If you hit it, it will fall and instantly kill him and avoid this fight. But there is a good reason to do these fights, because if you get touched by the ginger a few times, he'll give you gingivitis, and you'll get an achievement. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, you can do that. Although gingivitis has nothing to do with being touched by gingers, which makes it all the more hilarious. You'll also notice he had a shield. Whenever an enemy has a shield, his life will be different, and next to it will be a number. Whatever that number is how many times you have to hit him to get rid of his shield. So just bear that in mind. But at this point, the darts and the bleed, so powerful. We literally do not need to try in the combat, because we're just going to wreck these people. You do not want to set off the environmental hazards on yourself, because they'll insta-kill you, and you'll see the Mormons welcome you into heaven, which is in, you know, the game over screen, which is pretty funny. And this sequence here is introducing us to using your companions to interact with things. So you want to swap out your party, and then from in there you want to select the hand on the bottom left, and then you have to aim at the dude and press the right trigger when it glows up. And Kenny's going to show his boobs. And this guy, for some reason, thinks that Kenny's a girl and that those boobs are awesome, and he opens the door for us. And I'm going to have Kenny in my party now for a little bit, but I don't really recommend him, because Butters is just so useful. Not only does he have a multi-hit spell, but he has a really good heal too that you can spam. Because this game implements a strange healing mechanic of you're able to use an item and then still attack in a turn. There's no punishment for using items, and I think, as far as difficulty goes, it's a mistake, but it's still really nice to know you can always get off a heal or get off a status heal or whatever you want to do before you do anything, because it enables you to plan a lot of things. But conversely to this, I'm going to break the game at the end, which is hilarious, because the game tells me to fart on the balls of the last boss, and I can't do it because I'm not able to recover my mana. And I actually have to attack the last boss with something that won't do anything, so then the turn will pass and it'll let me heal. So that was pretty funny to see. But here's a couple more gingers. You'll see there that the touch puts my defense down, and I've also been grossed out. Grossed out is a symptom that status effect, which stops you from being able to heal and does residual damage after every action. It's kind of like being poisoned. I'm not going to heal it on these battles because they're over too quickly for me to really care. And like, although I won't be using Kenny, Kenny is a useful character. He does have some good abilities. He's got a unicorn move that does a big damage to a row, but I just don't really use him. I like Butters, and then I like Cartman. And I carry Cartman around mainly because of what he says, because he's my favourite character in the show. He's usually the most outrageous. But also he has a spell which, if you're up against an enemy that doesn't have armour, it does massive damage. But it's one of the last spells he gets, so you can only use it towards the end of the game. But here is another example of the environmental hazards that you can interact with. If you shoot the cigarettes into the fireworks, it'll stun the ginger over there. Then if you shoot the books, it'll land on the other ginger who's scared. And then if you fart into the fire, it'll knock those two guys over. And that is 4 dudes neutralized without a single combat sequence. And I think it's such an interesting idea, and you don't see it in games. You know, the option to kill things before you fight them is really cool, and for the most this game does it well. I just wish they were a little bit more difficult or complicated. But still, it's, you know, I can't complain. It's a really cool idea. It's implemented well, and although this is an incredibly simple RPG, it still manages to have enough in it to remain fun for the full duration. But I am using the nail bat that I picked up in Kenny's house. It's, you know, it doesn't really matter what my main weapon is at this point, because all we're doing is building bleed, stunning, and then using Butters to kill groups. You know, my weapon doesn't really count. And here's me looting. Unfortunately, you can't read the loot I'm picking up because I'm going through it way too quickly. But it's all worth looking at because it's hilarious. So many references. And, you know, I'm already pretty referential when it comes to South Park. Me and my group of friends are massively referential when it comes to South Park. Because, you know, I was in secondary school when it started. And I was literally just starting secondary school. So it's a very influential time of your life, and the stuff that you're exposed to at that age has a massive influence on you. And when it's something as crazy as what South Park was, because before this show, cartoons really didn't do the adult thing that well. I mean, there were adult cartoons, and in Japan obviously they had cartoons like fucking tentacle raping stuff, because they always just have. But over here, cartoons have always been looked at as something for children, and when this came out, it was definitely not for children, and I think it's one of the reasons for its success, because, like, I think they were frustrated, a lot of people that made cartoons, because you watch some of the old stuff, and even the kiddie stuff has got references for adults, because they just couldn't make adult cartoons. It didn't sell, because of the stigma. And I think this paved the way for a lot of shows. I mean, look at Family Guy and American Dad, and a whole host of different ones. If it wasn't for this show, those programs probably wouldn't exist. Like, I'm not too sure about King of the Hill, because that had been around for ages, and that was probably directly inspired by Beavis and Butthead, because that's another one that was, you know, quite adult but irreverent, which I do admittedly like when I was younger, not so much as I got older. This sequence here is a boss fight. You might not have noticed because I've stunned the boss. And all we're doing is we're setting them on fire and we're building bleed. And then from that point onwards, every turn they are one step closer to dying. It's so powerful, guys. It really is. Like, Butters ends his turn and this boss dies, regardless of what he does. And boss is going to use and Butters uses the hammer and kills him anyway. So there you go. End of boss fight. All that's left to be done now is to hit the cafeteria door and save our warrior friend. And you'll notice I keep going into the options to make sure the difficulty hasn't shifted, because, you know, I romped that boss. And I'm always self-conscious that, you know, stuff is not on the difficulty it's meant to be. Especially when it's something like this, where the game doesn't ask you to pick the difficulty at the start. It starts on normal. I had to manually change it, which is interesting and a bit of an oversight, but thank you for watching, and you take care now.